Well, welcome everyone to session 18D. 18D. And this one is going to be very interesting. It's going to be talking about talent and culture. The role of culture and talent in gathering data-driven, in getting us to a data-driven organization. Raj is going to be coordinating the panel discussion, and she has a panel of 4 other folks. And to introduce herself and to introduce them, let me hand over to her right away.
Thank you so much, Derek. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, based on where you are in the time zone. I'm Raj Nimmagadda, head of R&D data office at Sanofi Pharmaceuticals, playing a role of chief data office for Sanofi R&D. I'll be moderating the session. Welcome. I would like to thank all our panelists joining us today. In the data-driven transformation journey, the culture and talent play a key role. So the session is about how culture and talent are going to play a key role in the data-driven journey. So based on a Gartner CDO survey, culture and talent are critical for the success of data-driven organization. These came as top 2 activities. So the panelists are going to share their experiences on how these are help them in transforming their organizations, and also based on their experience in the industry. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. Start with Luca Quarta from BCG. Luca, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Raj. Happy to be here with you all. So as said by Raj, I am from BCG, partner and associate director, focusing only on data and analytics topics. I'm out of the Paris office. So 3 years that I'm at BCG, working with clients from all industries on data science subject. I'm leading the data governance topic across BCG with another colleague. And before to join BCG, I was myself CDO in a financial institution.
Thank you, Luca. Jack, can you please introduce?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Raj. My name's Jack Pollard. I lead a group in Sanofi Research called Precision Oncology, where we use data and analytics to bring forward new medicines to cure cancer. And I'm very excited to kind of hear everybody's views today.
Thank you, Jack. Shanta.
Hi, everyone. I am the Global Data Governance Lead at Sanofi, specializing in R&D data, and come to it with experience across pharma, across all functions in pharma, and I'm looking, and people and culture are things that I'm passionate about. So I'm looking forward to sharing with the panel all our views and also hearing what's top on your mind.
Thank you, Shanta. Over to you, Savio.
Thank you, Raj. Hello, everyone. My name is Savio Rodrigues. I lead the strategic partnerships for Triance. I'm based out of the Boston area, and happy to be here, to just talk about some perspectives, interacting with different clients in this hot topic.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the introductions. I just want to give some more context. The data is growing exponentially over the past few years, and it is continued to grow 26% in the next up to 2025. So with this increase in the data and diverse data sets, how can organizations continue to transform themselves, right? The technology transformation is going on at rapid speed with AI, data science, and also there is data foundations are rapidly growing, but there are some cultural aspects, and as well as the talent and data literacy are growing in need and absolutely needed for the journey. So how organizations are transforming themselves in these areas, and so that it can build the capabilities that organizations need to be successful, right? So that's what we want to discuss, and I hope you will get some key learnings by end of the session. We have great industry experts and data experts as a panel. So without further ado, I'll ask a quick question to Lucas on culture. Can you share your perspectives on culture and how culture is being prioritized in your organization or based on your experience in the industry, Luca?
Yeah, thank you, Raj, with pleasure. Actually, we have a simple equation at BCG. When you do a data science project, AI or advanced analytics topics, actually 10% of the effort, of the difficulty, is on the algorithmic side. 20% of the difficulty is on the technology, and 70% of the difficulty is related to change management and culture. Knowing that only 10% of the companies, according to a survey we did with the MIT, are successful in their data transformation, we can guess easily that the importance of the culture, the change management, is huge. It's most probably a lack of culture, a lack of change management. It's one of the main root causes of these failures. But what does it mean to have a data culture? It's very wide. It's very wide because actually, if you think about what we want to do in a data transformation, basically you want to give information to people, new insight when you are generating them with advanced analytics and AI and other data science techniques. If you let the people work as they work today, there is no reason why they will use this new insight. You have to change something. If you want them to use something new, you have to ask them to change something, to change the way they operate, to change the way you incentivize them, to change the way you decide, as simply as that. So this is the change of culture. And if you want to promote that, you have also to upskill the people, because you will ask them to change the way they operate, the way to decide. So you have to change what they know, how they operate usually. So talent, upskilling, change of culture, incentivation, all this is part of the change of the culture. So you can have a lot of good algorithms. You can have very nice new technology, state of the art. If you don't change the way people behave, it will not change anything. And because we are speaking about the CDO, the importance of data quality, data governance, we put data management inside of this change management, because making sure that the people take care of the quality of their data along the process, making sure that you will bring the right data at the right place to the right people at the right point of time with right security and right privacy. This needs change in the behaviors. This needs change in the ways of working. So this is part of the cultural change you have to bring in your company. Any other thoughts amongst my colleague panelists?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of industries, you know, so I work in the pharmaceutical industry, but you know, I think over time, you know, the product, at least in many different aspects, is becoming the data. You know, it may be kind of monetized, you know, in a certain way through drugs or, you know, different aspects, but really the key asset that we create at any rate, and actually what I would argue is a lot of other, you know, companies as well, the key asset that they create is the data, and getting folks to kind of, you know, understand that and in a broader sense, and you know, look at the data, you know, that they're generating either in their own labs or through their own processes as being as valuable as you know, the commodity that they might be producing at the end of the day is critical.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to add to what Jack and Lucas have said, I think it also requires some organization, getting the organizational priorities rallying around this mission, right? And every business let's assume you're using or you're changing the policies for data use in one part of the business. How should the priorities that generate this data, how should their priorities be aligned to deliver you good data? All of these organizational priorities need to be aligned. How does Luca alluded to performance metrics, things like that? How do you bring in the data metric at the people level across all ranks of the organization? So you really transform the entire organization to be a data-driven culture. And I know there's another session after this that talks about how they actually did this, how they brought in performance metrics to change the culture. So really, and some other thing, for example, we know systems are both used to generate data, systems are used to produce data. How are your systems and your digital processes tied to that data equation, right? Is your SDLC or your software process, is it taking data as an important component of its transformation? So there are many organizational priorities that also need to change around this concept of data culture, or delivering a data culture is something that I would like to add. Savio.
No, totally. I mean, I think we see the buzzword used across the industry, right, with digital transformation. I think it's even more important. We see human capital transformation, which is the key focus, these days. So it's really the human capital, how it's being transformed, and the whole digital transformation which data caters to. It's the mindset. It's a big shift. It's not just a technology aspect of it, but it's the whole rethinking of the product, how it is received, and all of that. So it's really the human capital transformation, which is the key, and culture is a very, very key element to Lucas's point and the team's point on the ground.
Awesome, great. Thank you. Great points. Just to continue on that, Savio, maybe if you can share some of your perspectives on how culture played a role in overcoming the challenges challenges that in transforming a data-driven organization, or how our culture can help in realizing the opportunities, right? The data-driven transformation is a long journey. It takes years. So just want to hear your thoughts on how culture played a role in overcoming those challenges and realizing the opportunities.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. I mean, absolutely. These days, we see time is the essence. There is a lot of pressure, on the data teams to deliver data efficiently for various consumers. We look at marketing, we look at product teams. They just don't want to wait around, for the data. So teams are more and more responsible for working with different groups, different engineering groups, and we just seen that technical ability isn't enough. The data professionals really need to have strong communication skills, and the ability to guide the whole group towards some kind of a common goal. So more and more what we are seeing and we're dealing with for the data leaders on the ground, it's not just, amplifying your team's abilities with the appropriate team structures and processes in place. As we all see it, the best tools cannot be leveraged without the right people. So that's one key area, and just getting them to transform is very critical. And we also see another one, which is, from a self-service perspective, it's becoming very, very prominent. Everyone wants to have the self-service data. So a lot of the data professionals are tasked with coaching the rest of the organization. And it's a huge challenge. We want lots of departments to be able to access the data, but it's really hard to teach everyone to be competent with data and use the data safely. But sadly, there's no silver bullet in all of this. It's really equipping the right people, which is the most important thing, and educating the team.
Yeah. I think one of the things of education, I think, is also understanding purpose, right? People come at different levels of maturity and different kinds of engagement in this data supply chain, as I say, from production to consumption. Their mode of engagement is different, and unless they understand the immediate relevance of what they do, and the relevance beyond what they do, the purpose beyond what they do. It is an art getting them to be invested in that purpose, right? And unless they feel fully vested in that purpose, that engagement with data is going to be somewhat wanting and limited. And so I think that when there is that need for changing an organization, there is there's so much to be done in resisting change. That people are resisting change. How would you overcome that? People are resisting being disciplined, because the act of gathering and serving up data is somewhat of a disciplined activity. How would you bring people to be a little more disciplined, right? And some things that I think Jack and and some of us who work in the pharma space can relate to is the fact that research is somewhat research in pharma, or probably for every other domain, every other industry, is equated with innovation, right? And innovation sometimes is synonymous with I can do whatever I want. So how do you bring discipline to an activity that is supposed to be free-spirited and uncontrolled and uncaged, right? So the act of the art, I think, of bringing discipline to activities is also one of the aspects of change management. And beyond that, how do you take the drudgery out of manual work? How do you automate to the extent possible things? I think now we are ready as actually an ecosystem ready with some technologies that allow us to do that. But above all, I think that purpose, knowing the purpose of what they're doing, is very key to changing the culture.
Yeah, I fully agree on the purpose topic. I mean, the most successful data transformation is when you really put the data at the core of what you are doing. If you put it at the core of what you are doing, you use the data to change what your company, the way or what your company is delivering for its client, for the services or product and things like that. So if it's really at the core and the data is important, people will see directly the impact they have in managing the data the right way. And I think a lot of companies are speaking about the data, but they are saying that they are innovating, but on something which is not important for the company, which is a little bit on the side. Then people don't trust, actually, they see that by working on that, they are not impacting the company. If it's really at the core, they see really the impact of what they are doing. And this is the biggest way to involve the people, to let them change, is to let them see by themselves that they impact with their day-to-day activities on the data, they impact what the company is delivering.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Jack, you want to add something?
I mean, I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about, how one can kind of, bring new folks into the organization, and then, and importantly, kind of grow them kind of along the kinds of missions, maybe amplifying a little bit of what, Savio was talking about. I think kind of, people are in this business, I think maybe uniquely amongst all others, people are the real most valuable resource. That human capital is so incredibly important. Technology is one thing, but, smart human capital is the most important success factor. And so at least, for me, I'm always on the lookout, for new folks and new talent. I think it's very critical. I happen to live in Boston, which is a sort of a blessed place to be. So I'm always watching what people are reading on the subway. I'm ducking out to talks at MIT at lunch. Those kinds of things, just like super, critically important, because every opportunity is a real networking opportunity, especially, for folks that have the right skills and the right talents. And a little bit to kind of pick up on what, Savio said, I think, at least for me and for my teams, what we're looking for most are folks who, in fact, who are great communicators and are fluent in many different languages. Okay, and I'm not just talking about because we're a French company with German affiliates. I'm talking about people who speak the language of science, and people who speak the language of data, and people who speak the language of clinical development. Those kinds of things. So I think kind of always being on the lookout, for folks, is really critically important. Be really clear in your own mind, I think, about what it is that you need, and I try to look for folks, in fact, who love to do that kind of thing. There's a little concept that I have that I call the magic moment. That's what I'm trying to create in every team that we build together. Is what do I need to do? What do you love to do? because if you can match those two things up, that's like a magic moment. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of gets folks to kind of run into the office the first thing in the day to kind of figure out how to cure cancer by attacking it with math. You know, that's what gets people excited. You know, that's where new ideas pop out. You know, really kind of amazing things. And I think once you've kind of found that team and you've created that good environment, you know, folks sometimes talk to me about retaining. I like to use the word grow. You know, because in a lot of ways, you know, what you're trying to do is, at least from my perspective, you're trying to help your folks kind of grow into what it is that they want to be. And that's really deeply understanding, you know, what they want to achieve. You know, you've probably engaged with them because they're super talented, they're super capable, you know, they're the smartest person, right? But understanding their aspirations and their desires and what makes them feel appreciated and recognized, I think is like, you know, super important. You know, I try to give folks hard problems, stay out of the way. If you that's why you hired them, right? Right. You know, that's sort of my personal approach for, you know, trying to kind of build a good team and keep them moving and growing in a positive direction.
Great. Thank you, Jack. Any of the panelists want to add any strategies that you are using in recruiting and growing the talent in the data space?
Yeah, I just want to add, Jack, I'm kind of reminded of a place when you talk about recruiting, right? I think there was something on LinkedIn that said, if I'm hiring a data science person and I ask a simple SQL question and they don't answer it, am I a little old fashioned or am I not, right? So, or is this how data science works? So I think one of the things in finding the right talent is, while a lot of a lot of data and data related topics have become very commoditized. So to find those people that still know the basics and know how to dip into the basics and yet come out of it when needed, I think that there are some who can and some who cannot. And there is use for all kinds of people in a team. In a team, you need these people that can span several layers of knowledge and information, some that stay deep within one. There are some that go across broad. And so to appreciate what it means to bring together a team and to recruit for the right way, you know, testing them for the right things, and imparting, as Jack does to his team, an appreciation of the whole, the appreciation of each people's skills, and getting the team to tap into each other whenever they need. That is really going to keep this whole momentum going, from recruiting to solving to keeping the gang going on, and, you know, making those personal connections beyond that. And then there is a little bit about apprenticeship. I think a lot of us are keep getting pinged by, you know, I want to do this. There are mentors. There are people that want to, you know, take up an internship here or there. How can you transform some of those people that are eager and happy and invest your time in these to create that next new generation of people that can appreciate data? And like Jack said, lingual, bilingual, multilingual, and the people that can bridge several domains, right? Not just one or two, but several. One of the things that I tell my mentees now is that the people that survived, let's say, the dot-coms of the before or the informatics boom later on, etc., are the people that quickly adapted themselves and retooled their skills for many other purposes. And that is going to be the theme of in all industries going forward. It's no longer just one domain. It is about how you bring chemistry with material science, with biology and physics and everything else together. So the people that can speak multiple multiple languages, as Jack said, is very, very important. But again, should everyone be speaking multiple languages? Should everyone be doing that? That is a personal, I think it's really how teams bring together everything. Some of us can, some of us are somehow wired differently, and I appreciate every part of it. But a team that is very well-rounded in all of this is what is a very successful team.
Yep. And just to very quickly add, there's a big thing about even having the right investments. It's very hard. It's very hard to there's always this constant battle to win the buy-in, from different colleagues or stakeholders. What is the value? The data. What kind of investments for if it's for accurate insights. I think there's this need for making sure that the right investments are coming and proving those incremental values quickly on the ground as well. So that's another culture, the aspect that is very, very important, especially in a data-driven organization.
Definitely, and to make the link between what Shanta said and with what you are saying, speaking different languages, putting things together, demonstrating the value. I think being data management, data governance topics, or data science topic, I mean, keeping these people in an ivory tower, in a central place, working alone in their side, does not allow them to speak different languages and to prove the value. It's by executing these functions, data governance, data management, and data science things close to the businesses where the problem has to be solved, that you demonstrate the value, and then you definitely, by definition of a multidisciplinary team, you are speaking the different languages. It is, for me, the question of culture also is true. The fact that data has to be deeply where the business is. I mean, you need competency centers. You need, of course, professionals, but these professionals has to be there where the business is doing. And this, for me, retaining and developing talent, it's by doing this.
Yeah, I just want to, kind of echo that, a little bit. I think the biggest impacts that we've seen, fundamentally are when we deeply integrate, the data scientists, into the project team. The way I describe it, is some people wield pipettes and some people wield mice, other people wield data matrices to answer important scientific questions. Everyone has a part to contribute to the solution. And really getting people deeply working together. That's when you get this people who speak multiple languages, and you can appreciate, a negative matrix factorization problem that you might be approaching for dimensionality reduction actually can kind of help for compound optimization. Although no one ever thought about that until you kind of put those 2 points together and you're listening in that project team.
Awesome, great points. I think human capital is the success factor, right? And tapping into these multidisciplinary team where you can, where teams can talk multiple languages, right? Language of data, science, technology. We need a diverse team to be successful. So with that, I think a great segue into the next question to Shanta on data literacy program or data upskilling. I know data literacy has a positive and negative connotation. How our organizations, or in your experience, the data literacy programs are built to upskill the existing talent in the organizations?
Thank you, Raj. So I think what I will do is start with the commonly appreciated and understood definition of data literacy and go from there. So almost everyone, and there are several companies and organizations talking about data literacy, programs for data literacy, and they center around the definition that data literacy is the ability to read, write, and communicate with data in context, right? So it's just like you put your letters together and you know how can spell, so the same thing with data. And and a definition that I think I would like to socialize more of, and we are beginning to do that within our own organization, is somewhat broader. And that means appreciation of data, of the data where you are. You don't have to be someone who actually works with data. You can be the person on the machine floor that's just, cranking a machine and out comes the data. And you may do nothing with that data. All you may do is give that data to the next person down the line for them to do it, right? For them to work with. But even in that role of being the producer of data, you need to appreciate data. and the literacy that I think we want to work, the definition of data literacy that we want to work with is the appreciation of data, regardless of where you sit in the organization. And it is very important for us because as we roll out these big transformation programs, just like we said before, how do we, when you roll out this program, any data transformation, digital transformation, if you want the rank and file and everyone vested in it from top to bottom, everyone needs to know why they are doing and the data components of what they are doing. How does it matter for their, like I said before, and everyone's echoed that, what are they doing it, what is the relevance of data to what they do now, and for the larger vision of the organization. How does the data that you produce here and end up in, let's say, that molecule that goes out? You may not know every bit of it. You need to know a little bit of it. So you begin to generate quality data with, so you just quality data, generating quality data with a certain passion is a big win for those of us who are going to use the data. And working with your systems in a happy manner, as I call it, is something that's going to be useful for all of us, right? If I just use this, let's say I have a system and I have the right fields in it, but I'm so lazy and I just put everything in free text over there. It's not going to help any of us down the road. But to take the time to work with the system, use every field there is to capture the information about the data that you're generating, serves someone down the road who's using that data. So engaging that base, and to us, I think we are all working on that new definition of data literacy. And so that with that, I think that is one. So that is my definition, our definition of data literacy, and we are going to bring together programs to support that definition. So what does that mean, supporting that definition? That definition really, how do you support it? You support it by going to the base, showing them these stories about how their work relates to the overall business. One thing that I've always done in all my teams in all these years is the first week is really telling them, here is what this project is about, let's say. And this project means this to the company. Your role in this project is to do this, X something, and what does it mean for that project and for the client? And most of the time I've been in client-facing situations. So people are really understand why they're doing, and then they bring that passion to what they're doing. So the educating the people is one. The second thing I've done and train my teams and people on my teams to do is really playing this multilingual role. So let's assume you have a huge data science projects, and I've done some of these where you have teams of data or data science people, and you have business that is not so data science savvy yet, but knows the stories that they want to crack or the problems they want to crack. How do you coach that business team in understanding this data science model? How do you break down that data science model to consumable bits and pieces that the business can appreciate? So really straddling the business and data continuum, right? Playing that role of interpreter and translator. So the data literacy programs that we want to roll out are about this, educating people to understand their role in the bigger picture, and also educating more folks to do these business conversations better. What is the problem that you're solving, and how does your data science problem solve it? What is the problem that you're really trying to solve, and what should I do about the data to make it solve? And in all of these conversations, there is none of this jargon like catalog or master data or anything like that. You are going to use just simple, plain English that my dad, my mom, or someone would say your 7-year-old kid can understand. It's an art, but that art of storytelling is the one that wins hearts and minds and gets people vested in this data story. With that, I will stop on how I would do data literacy. And I've let everyone else narrate their experience.
I like it, Shanta, and I would propose you an additional dimension to your definition of data literacy.
Yes.
While I like yours, so it's not to replace it, but it's to complement it, is I think data literacy is the understanding of the impact of the data.
That is a good, very succinct definition.
And at every level of the company, having an understanding of the impact of the data makes a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, for the senior management, for the top management, is what is the data is providing me as a competitive edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I need value to what I'm delivering, or something that I can deliver that I'm not delivering today, or at the next level of quality, or something like that. For the business unit manager, is how this help me to do better what I'm doing, to let my team work better, to my clients to have something better, and things like that. And for people working on data management, data governance, is what is my role in impacting the quality of the data will impact the delivery of something. So for me, data literacy is fundamentally having an understanding and a conscious, being conscious of what is the impact of what I'm doing with the data.
100%. Yes, that's a good word. Yeah.
And I would add, like, just another sort of element to that. I don't know if it's a dimension or not, but you know, I think it's always like super important to kind of take every opportunity to kind of talk about both your successes, you know, with upper management. You know, don't be shy when you're in those situations. You know, to Santha's point, don't sort of have it jargon laden, sorry. You know, but try to be really clear about, you know, what it is that you're doing, what you're providing to the business, how it's kind of moved the needle. That's like so critically important.
Yeah.
You know, and then at the same time, I think as you're working with your team, you know, also like critically important, provide that context, that rationale for why is this deadline driven in this way? You know, not so much that the deadline is this deadline, or we need to get, you know, these things accomplished by these dates, but try to put things, you know, in context about why you're focusing on the data understanding and the data execution elements in these ways. Both by managing up and by managing down, I think you can kind of show, you know, to your organization how data is like making that difference. I think that's like really important.
Yeah. And I think I love the word that Shanta used towards the end, you know, storytelling. You know, the data storytelling is so critical these days. So it's you can have the most advanced technologies at your disposal, but if you don't provide you know, that value until you can tell the story behind the numbers, that's going to be very, very important as well.
Yeah, awesome, great points. I think storytelling is always critical and very difficult one. I think linking back to what Jack said for building the talent pool, right? Having a sense of understanding about different languages, the data language and the science language, I think should be able to articulate that that story based on the users you are talking to. And also the great point Luca made on data literacy, understanding the impact of the data and showcasing the value of the data to all levels in the organization. It's great, great points. So let's quickly look at the chat. I think there are some great questions. Just want to make sure we address some of the audience questions. I think let's tackle the upskilling existing team versus engaging consulting resources. To accelerate a data-driven organization, what is the best initial approach when compared to upskilling the existing team versus engaging consulting resources?
Let me take it. I'm a consultant, and most probably my answer will surprise you. I mean, definitely it's upskilling. And to upskill, of course, to hire some good consultant will accelerate you, you know, but you have to be very clear on what you are waiting from the consultant. I mean, if you ask a consultant to do the job for your people will never be upskilled. If they don't do, if you ask someone else to do the job for them, I mean, you will never upskill your people. You will be always at the same stage. And in a certain way, you will be locked forever with your consultant, right? So what you ask to the consultant is to build something with your team, to operate something to your team, but mainly to transfer something to your team, right? And then the consultant has made a good job when, after a certain period of time, decided together he can leave. This would be the best proof of the success of the consultant, that he can leave leaving behind him something that can be managed, can be executed without him. So definitely it's much more upskilling than engaging consultant, but to upskill, yeah, definitely I'm sure you need some good consultant.
Yeah. I was in the past, I've been a consultant, and one of our clients had a very specific task. Give me a talent model that will do just this, upskill my teams and still keep the program going, and show me when you will become redundant. We had to really put a nice timeline there that says how we will bring in people. It'll be a 2-in-the-box model for every capability that we're trying to do, and how we will phase out people too. So and this was another data officer who had this vision in mind of upskilling, but also engaging the consultant. But he did it in a very determined fashion by asking us to set this up.
Absolutely.
And I think I think very quickly, if I may, the whole adoption culture has to be rightly looked at when you're trying to answer that as well, because it's really you have to either get it right, and there's always going to be some weeding out in the process, but I think it's important to test the waters in terms of the in the adoption itself. And to Lucas's point, having the North Star, if I may say, with the consultant coming and directing will be very critical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to find the right balance between what is the percentage of resource allocation you want to do on a project. I think the team should look at broader, not executing the project or executing a data-driven initiative, but looking at broader how to do the change management, how to upskill the entire organization along with the transformation journey. I think it's great points. Yeah. So the next question I want to ask is maybe a little bit more on specific to oncology. How does data-driven decision-making assist in the treatment of oncology cases? I know this is more focused on pharma. Maybe Jack, you can, I think you are, you have expertise in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I could try that one. I mean, oncology, if you want to really talk about sort of the probably at the vanguard of sort of using data and analytics to try to understand, who are the patients that we want to treat, and then how best to treat them. I think oncology is in that space. Kind of given the nature of the disease, the somatic mutations, et cetera, which are, kind of very, very different and easy to detect. Oncology for a long time, in fact, has been generating sort of vast amounts of data to try to, first and foremost, describe the disease and sort of, in the most important setting, in fact, try to understand, like, well, where do our drugs that we have today not work, right? Because that's the space where you try to go to develop new therapies, is where things are not working. So that's one aspect of data, and we use data to describe that situation. And then when you can kind of understand, the mechanism for, fundamentally described with data for where drugs are not efficacious, then you can start to think about, well, how might then I attack that mechanism? And again, you turn to data. You turn to data to characterize that situation, to perform modeling and simulation, to look at that situation. You turn to data to actually pick model systems for testing your hypothesis. And you generated an idea about this target or this combination of targets are important. Well, you need a model system for testing that. Well, how do you pick a model? Do you pick one randomly, or do you try to pick one that has the mechanism and one that doesn't have the mechanism to try to understand the therapeutic window that you might actually achieve? That's another aspect of it. In oncology today, we're also kind of at the forefront of what we call targeted therapy. We're picking individual patients that have different sort of somatic mutations or different genotypes that we're aiming certain targeted therapies toward. We'll test in advance, and some people are going to be good candidates for that therapy because they happen to have that genetic alteration. Other patients are not, and that's a great thing because then we're not fundamentally giving somebody false hope. That this therapy is going to help them or not help them. We can kind of send them off to a different therapy, that might be better suited for them. And then also we're using data actually, in the clinic as well, kind of in two ways. In the clinical trials, we're using data to try to understand, is our drug actually hitting the target of interest? Is it sort of able to potentiate the activity of that target to the degree that we think it did based on our preclinical studies? Yes or no? Because sometimes, in fact, the target is right, but the compound is wrong. And so that doesn't mean that we should sort of scrap that target, scrap that mechanism, scrap that idea. We need a better compound, right? So that's another kind of aspect of using data, in the clinic. And then also, we're using data as well to try to understand, the resistance mechanisms that we see emerging very early on that are just at the limit of detection of our ability, 1 in a trillion. Kind of thing. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for, because at least in cancer, it's a clonal disease of evolution over time, and being able to look way down into the very small, minute events can give us really clues about how we might be able to put things together in combination. So that's in some ways, some of the ways that we're using data and analytics, at least in my team and other pharmaceutical companies, to attack and cure cancer.
Jack. Luca or Shanta, based on your consulting background, you want to add anything?
No, I think there can be no one. Now Jack is complete.
Difficult to come after the expert.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Jack. So maybe the next question is interesting aspect on what ethic and culture methodologies can be used or applied to enhance the transformation of data enabled project.
I mean, ethic, I think, is a really, really good point. I mean, everybody has in mind bias that you can have in the data if you don't treat them correctly. And then that leads to decisions that are way far from what you expect. I mean, we have all examples of these bias, and actually quality of a data set and good management of these data sets would definitely avoid this kind of bias. And ethics nowadays, it's a real topic with the emergence and the use, the heavy use of AI in many processes, being in banks, insurances, pharma, everywhere where you impact the life of the people. Ethics is definitely very important, and data governance, data management, it's at the basis of to ensure ethics. So definitely agree that ethics it's a fundamental topic to drive data governance, data quality.
I think also, something to kind of add on to that is, as data scientists and like leaders of teams, I think it's like super critical to kind of give your folks the freedom in a way to kind of say, what are questions that we can answer with a certain degree of certainty, and what are questions that we can't? There's we're in the science of sort of probability in many different kinds of ways, right? What's the uncertainty and what's the probability of it is that what we're seeing. And so just be really honest and clear about that, because look, when someone shows up on my doorstep and they have a magic meaning-making machine, I really don't believe them, because fundamentally there aren't any. I think we all appreciate that everything has its space. There's uncertainty to lots of different approaches. There's nothing that's absolute. And so be really kind of clear with your customers and with your teams to kind of provide them that freedom. The folks that I reward the most on my team are the folks who say, I don't think that this model has converged, at something that I feel like would be significant, because we did enough resampling to kind of understand that. The results that we got were a little stochastic. Let's not move forward with this. As opposed to kind of having folks spend time on something with opportunity cost, right? Because then you're kind of wasting your time kind of chasing blind alleys. And so I think being ethical and being clear with yourself and with your customers and your colleagues about what's possible, what's not possible, what are the certainty levels that are associated to them, I think that's like really important in the business that we're in.
Yep.
Yeah, and to add to one that I think we've all talked about it, right? So if let's assume there's a project and there are different kinds of stakeholders in this, getting them to understand the the vision of the project, the data involved, the outputs of the project, aligning that expectation is a big part of that culture thing. Too often we go into this thing with mixed expectations, mixed understanding of what the data is, or the quality of the data at the outset, or the expectation of the model, not just model. I won't say it doesn't have to be a data science project. It can be just that I'm going to bring more quality, or I'm going to bring these standards to this project. What is the expected outcome? That itself is a big cultural thing that our teams don't often play it right, and is really the showstopper, really why we cannot gain much success in most of what we do. And it's fundamental to how any project should be driven.
Yeah, no, and I think as one of the Harvard professors put it well, right, with data ethics, it's a whole can of worms, but it's two key questions that you try and answer. Is this the right thing to do, or can we do it better? And there's no team that is perfect. There's no algorithm that is perfect, but there's a lot of discipline, that because everything is training with machine learning coming in, models training to data sets. And it's really how important you make your data set relevant, right? And that's the underlining culture of those data engineers being able to bridge the gap, the communication between the right people, making sure the involvement exists, and pulling all of that together, which we see is pretty critical.
Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe we'll take one last question. I think we are close to wrap up. So what aspects of the data literacy program we should tactically address in the first 90 days of the project initiation?
That's a good one.
Good one, yes.
Yeah, very good one. I mean,
go ahead, Lucas.
There I really like, it's not from me, I really like the pragmatism of something I have seen in one company. I mean, asking each and every manager to ask their people in every meetings to justify everything with data. You tell me something, you give me, you propose me something, on which data are you backing your what you are telling me, your hypothesis and things like that. So everything, you want to be data driven, everything has to be backed by data. And then the second question is, are you sure of this data? What have you done to make sure that the data you have is the right one? Are you sure? You tell me it's 10%, or it's not 20, or it's not 5. Who told you that? From where is coming the data? And asking these two simple questions in each and every meeting, people will definitely think about, am I the data I need? And second is, am I sure about the quality of this data? So you will act, if you have these doubts, you will do something to make sure that you have the right data. And I think to enforce data literacy and importance of data and data quality, I think this is very magic.
Yeah. To add to what Lucas says and complements this, and again, I'm coming to data literacy with a broader sense of what it means, because not everyone in every organization is going to analyze big data, right? But I just want them to be part of that data fabric in whatever way they play. So, with that in mind, I think my first 90 days would be really going to everyone and understanding, or asking them to narrate, what do they do? What do they think is data in what they do? Where does it come from? Or how does it affect their neighbor? Who's downstream from them? Who's upstream from them, right? How is it being consumed? Tell me what it means in the larger, how are you a cog in this bigger mission of this company? How do you relate to the mission of the company? I'd like to understand that and see where those pockets of knowledge need upskilling. That's the first thing I would start with, and then we can go beyond that. The other thing I would also do is, probably because of the fact that data science is almost being used synonymously with data now, and there are a huge number of data science upskilling programs and things like that. I think that people need that definition. It's almost like everyone thinks that if they have to work with data, they have to be a data scientist. And data scientist is, of course, a new word for what people used to do before, but I'm not going there yet. But abolishing those I would say misconceptions of what data is or what data science is and how the twain are, and not really thinking that everyone should be writing that next NLP algorithm and all of that, will really change the fear that people have of data. To engage with data, you need to feel happy about it. And to feel happy about it, you should know that you don't have to be that rock star data scientist making that algorithm. But you are just as important in this data fabric of this organization. And that is what I would do. Anything that contributes to that understanding of how people relate to the data fabric is all I would do in the first 90 days or more.
Yeah, and I think just to complement, Shanta, what you said, right? I think the goal of a data literacy program, as we all know, right, it is to improve the everyone's ability, right? It's not just the data scientists, it's really improving everyone's ability and motivation, to read, to work with, analyze and argue with data. I think that's the culture, again, aspect that needs to be brought in on the ground.
Thank you. I think we are close to the end of the session. Great inputs. I think it's very clear that culture and data literacy and people are key. So just to summarize, in the culture aspect, 70% is change management. It's lot of change management needs to be done in the organization to drive the organization priorities and organizational objectives to be a data driven. And also data is a key asset. How data can transform the innovation and the technology advancements is also a key. On the talent side, in recruitment and upskilling, how can we create these multidisciplinary teams who can talk about different language of data, language of science, technology. So building these competency centers is very, very important. And then storytelling, right? How can you tell the story, why we are doing what we are doing, and also bridging the gap between business, technology, data, how these things come together and help this transformation. The last thing is, I think, great points on data literacy, right? How we can understand the impact of the data and can communicate top in the organization as well as the associates and bring the teams along with you in the transformation journey. So many learnings. I really enjoyed the session, and it's great inputs, different experiences, different perspectives on these topics. So it's pleasure having you all as a panelist. Thank you so much.
Raj, thank you for masterfully leading a group of folks through these topics. And obviously also thank you to Lucas, Jack, Santa, Savio. Also thanks to the audience, because there's been a bunch of really good questions that I think we're able to introduce into the discussion here. So, this is not where the discussion ends as well. As I'm sure everyone's aware, you can direct message any of the folks that have been on this panel here through the Hoover platform. You can reach out to them, make connections, and continue the conversation way beyond today. So please do that. And thank you again to everyone for your participation. And hopefully we see everyone again next year.
Thank you. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Derek. Thanks, Raj. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.